Sir Flowbojan Thunderhammer.
And I'm Teflon Frosthammer.
And I'm Cabbage Tidehammer.
And this
is
WAK.
If Amtgard knighthood means anything, you can't knife a motherfucker and keep it.
And the thing that people need to understand essentially about arts and sciences events is that your scores don't matter.
Do you want a black phoenix or a white phoenix?
Jeez, language, man. We're on
right.
a freaking podcast, for fuck's sake.
Mind-blowing experience. Right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to WAK, a show where we discuss interesting topics from around the foam fighting world. Today, we have some very special guests from Amtgard International. We have Sir Gavin Goldmoon, and we have Smiley. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad to be here, guys.
So we always kick the show off by asking what got you into Amtgard, or more generally, what got you into foam fighting. Goldmoon, Gavin, we'll start with you, and then we can kick it over to Smiley.
Well, growing up, we were all fantasy geeks, at least me and my friends. And long before we heard of something like Amtgard, we had our own little role play nights where we would fashion wooden swords and go have adventures and beat the snot out of each other with them, leaving, a fair share of bruises. And at 11 years old, we didn't care, right? It was all just awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we were in high school and somebody comes up and like, look what I found in some tattered photocopy of this thing called Amtgard. I would say this had to be the first version, probably not the first one, but maybe 2.0 or 3.0.
The one that was like still a Dagger Here rule book, just modified?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is the most amazing thing we've ever seen in our life. And so 5 of us, kind of read through it as fast as we could and formed a park, or started going to a park and just playing the snot out of this game. And we just had the most amazing time playing behind a convention center for months. It might have been almost a year. And then we found out, hey, other people actually do this?
Yeah, there's more than one.
Texas, and we discovered that there was other groups in Houston, Texas, and that was even more mind-blowing. We were like, wow, there's more people.
Right.
And this was before the wetlands was even a kingdom. And so we started to kind of go over there some. And in the beginning, I was screwing wood discs to my arrows and putting just some egg crate foam on them. This was real rough Amtgard back.
Was that what passed for legal back then? Just the...
Well, it was just the 5 of us. We had PVC and duct tape, and as long as it didn't hurt too bad.
Fair, yeah.
But then we found the Houston groups. And we're like, wow, cloth covers? That's genius. So it kind of just evolved, and then a couple of years later, I was driving down to the first Spring War and saw that there were actually hundreds of people who did this, and 30 years ago, and here I am still driving up to Spring War going, this is going to be so great.
I bet watching it grow over time has been great too. Smiley, do you want to tell us how you got into foam fighting in general?
I got into foam fighting when I was in junior high in a small town in New Mexico, and I was at through a comic book shop. I was a comic book geek. I loved collecting them. I loved going to the comic book shop, playing Magic the Gathering, all those things. And there was these few guys that would come in on the weekend, and they would come from Midland, Texas, from a group called Nine Willows. And some of our guys that lived in Hobbs, New Mexico, were traveling over there to play this game called Amtgard. And they were trying to figure out how to start a group in Hobbs. And I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was like, you guys got to be kidding me. This is so stupid. Are you serious? Until one guy named Van, his real name was John Van Martyr, he said, I'm so tired of you making fun of us. And I mean, I'm 14 years old. This guy's in his 30s, right? He's just like, get in the parking lot now. We're gonna fight, and if you beat me, then make fun of us all you want. If you can't, you're coming to the park Sunday. And I was like, sure, whatever, old man. And so he beat the hell out of me, and we went back inside and said, all right, you make sure your mom brings you to the park. And so that Sunday, talked to my mom, and I was like, she goes, sure, what are you doing? So I just go to the park to hit people with foam sticks, something called Amtgard. So she came out, checked it out, and started playing. And from there, we actually founded the park. I got to be one of the founding members, helped pick the colors. I remember we were wrapping throwing weapons, making throwing daggers with electrical tape and duct tape that didn't need a cover at the time. Those were fun when you hit in the face. But yeah, that's that's how I started, was making fun of all these guys, and then somebody beating me up and forcing me to go to the park, and I've been going ever since. And it was 1996.
Oh wow!
So it was it's been a long ride to get to this point.
Now, might makes right is an interesting style of recruitment. I don't know that we had much of that in recent years, but I like it.
Yeah.
Right. So but I've loved Amtgard fighting ever since. So
absolutely, yeah. So it's a pretty long road to hoe from getting started where you guys did to being where you are currently with Amtgard International, and we're gonna get to that. But talk me through just a little bit of that journey. So you get into Amtgard, you find this sport. Are we calling it a sport?
Yeah, sure.
You find this sport, and you get into it. Now, Gavin, I know you've had quite a bit of service under your belt. You're actually, I think you are a Knight of the Flame, if I'm not mistaken. Can you talk us through that just a little bit, like, going from, okay, I found this game, I finally figured out where the parks are, my first spring war. What are the milestones that you hit on the way to that, that flame belt and everything else?
Well, I'd say there's an initial period in Amtgard where you really want to play, and you really just want to play all the time. And that, those first 6-7 years, that's what we were doing. Just like, I want to go to park. I want to go to fighter practice. You want to play. Because, battle games never get old, right? At that stage in your life. You're running around and you're young and you're fit and you're just like, yeah, this is great.
Capture the flag again. Woo!
Yes. So there was that early period of just that excitement. And then as you meet more people and meet more groups, you start to see, oh, hey, there's something bigger here. This is not just running around in a park with my friends. This is a club, like a significant club, a large club. Mm-hmm. And you start to appreciate the club aspect of it, which makes you kind of want to get involved at higher levels. And as I started to see different things that were going on in different groups, I was like, wow, I would like to organize an event for people to have fun. Maybe I should try to do that. And you do it something small, then you do something bigger, and then you're still playing and you're still having fun, but you start to realize the importance of these other sort of game levels. And that just kind of, for me, it just kind of kept increasing. And then when I got to the CK, it's about year 10 or so, then I was really ready to do things. I wanted to be Guildmaster of Reeves because I wanted the tournaments to be awesome. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be Prime Minister because I wanted the club to run effective and for us to be able to pay our sites. And I wanted to do autocrat events because I wanted people to have a good time. And you start to see the club and the health of the club as making more fun for yourself. And that was kind of how I just started climbing the service ladder. And I didn't stop playing, there at my height of my service years, I was also a Justicar and winning Banner Wars every year. So I always liked, both aspects, of it. But they went hand in hand for me, and it just kind of grew out of a willingness to want the club to grow too, because I knew I had more fun at big events, and the best way to make big events is to make good events.
That's an interesting mindset. You actually just described about 10 different Amtgarders that I know currently in our kingdom, just in like one breath. So that's kind of cool. But I definitely dig that mindset.
Were you still a Justicar in 2003?
Yes.
You would have been a Justicar whenever the Triads came down to Texas, and that was my first event. That's when I got in.
Cool.
They shaved I shaved the Triad symbol. They didn't do it. I shaved the Triad symbol into my chest and had to go shirtless at the Justicar Park. I ended up pretty red that day.
Yeah, I didn't play at the Justicar Park. I was a Wetlander Justicar, so wouldn't come up to Dallas all that often.
Quick side note: if anybody has that picture of Flo with the Triad symbol shaved into his chest, I will Venmo you $10.
Really? Okay.
Damn it! Do you just have it? Did I overstep my?
No, I don't have it.
He's gonna pull it out of his pocket.
Yeah, I've been waiting.
In my wallet.
Yeah.
All right, Smiley, talk to us a little bit about your journey once you've discovered Amtgard. Tell us a little bit about your sort of next steps for the past couple of years.
Let's see. So, starting Amtgard was I was a nerdy kid, and I was bullied a lot, picked on a lot, and it just became a group that I found that I eventually became accepted. I got encouraged a lot, and through that, people, kind of just poured into me and really just helped me become, honestly, kind of the individual I am today. I started in Golden Plains, and from there, before I left, I was able to serve as our Kingdom Prime Minister for 4 terms consecutively. I was granted my flame belt I got a master rose after getting 20 roses, but that was back when the system was weird. So they didn't actually put first order or second or 10th or anything on it. It was just like, here's an order of the rose. Oh, you got 20. It might be your 10th. We don't know, but here, take it. So it was a fun time. And I just really kind of got into a lot of what Gavin has already said is I wanted to make everything better. I wanted to serve more because that made things funner. You know, for me as a player, I was able to help out at events, and that allowed me to do a lot of the things I wanted to do and just to see the group grow. We were able to grow our local group to a duchy. Damn. And then, you know, once it was about 2011, 2012, had to move to Fort Worth to go to school to work on a master's degree. So that put me in Emerald Hills, and you know, I'm a Flame Knight that, you know, had been playing for a while, since 96, and hit some events. And so some people in Emerald Hills knew who I was. A lot of people didn't. And, you know, got to kind of start afresh, if that makes any sense, and find something new to do. And I was like, you know, I've never been king. I've never been in the big leadership roles. And so I ran for king twice, lost the first time, won the second election, and got to be the king of the Emerald Hills. And then about 9 to 10 months later, for long story short, our finances personally just fell out, and so we had to move. And that was after living there for about 7 years.
Damn. And
so now I'm back in southern New Mexico. But before I left, a bunch of the Knights got together, unbeknownst to me. Hey, that's a nice one right there. Look at that. That's sexy right there.
Yes, sir.
See, and I love that, man. Like at my shop for, you know, where I make all the swords and everything, I have belt favors all over the wall from all the years. I love collecting stuff like that. So, you know, I might ask you what it's going to take, Flo, to get that belt favor off of you. That's a conversation we're going to have one of these days.
We can make a trade. That's one of the originals.
See, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, I got to serve as king. I had a blast doing it. The Knights got together once they figured out we were leaving, and unbeknownst to me, I got Ninja Knighted for the second time with a crown belt. And I was like, what is going on? I'm in tears. I got pied in the face by Ice and Fenton, because that's just how Ice is. He finds weird ways to do dumb things. And we just had a blast. And now I'm in the Burning Lands. And so being over here, I've been serving our local park a lot. I've been working on fighting. I've been working on teaching others to fight. So I've had the chance to win a few tournaments. I won some tournaments when I was in Golden Plains. I didn't win a single tournament when I was in Emerald Hills, but when you're fighting the likes of Brett and Raven and those guys, this is probably just not going to happen. It's like, all right, I'll take. You know, I got second. You know, I got third. You got cool. I'm going to step over here. But coming to Burning Lands, I got to start winning tournaments, and so 4 weeks ago, I got my Warlord, and that's where I'm sitting now. So
holy shit!
It's all just fun.
Nice, also,
thanks, guys.
Also, did anyone else get the impression when Smiley was talking about getting all of the roses that it was kind of like a cell phone gotcha game? Like over 5, you get to spin a roulette wheel, and if it lands on something, you get a belt.
I miss when the award structure was like Chuck E. Cheese ticket. Like, I got this many. What do I get? You get a slap bracelet.
That was 100%. That was 100% it. And my knight even came over and he was like, "You stop doing what you're doing." I was like, "What else do I got to do?" He goes, "I don't know, man. Maybe just a couple more, and you'll get it." I think it was like. By that point, it was like 7 more. He goes, "I don't know what's going on." Well, I'm going to keep fighting for you. And I was like, "I appreciate it." Drove my wife nuts. She was like, "You got to do something. You don't understand. He's not shutting up about it. I'm ready to kill him." And so I was serving as prime minister, and I had to get all the awards lists and had everything. And Darkin was our king at the time. Wrote it all down, and we're wrapping everything up. And I was like, "All right, that should be the end of court." And then he calls me before court, and I was like, "What's this?" And he goes, "We're giving you your Master Rose." And it was literally his last thing he did as king. Also in the process of us trying to flip the crown for Golden Plains. And so he did that last. They had an all-thing meeting, and that blew up into a huge fiasco. So it was like, "Smiley, here's your Master Rose." And now everybody hates each other. And I was like, "I'm going home with a Master Rose," but I don't think anybody cared. So we got back, and my wife was like, "How do you feel?" I was like, "I don't know. I kind of expected more, but I'm going to take it. This is going to be fine." So,
right.
But yeah, that's where I'm at now. And so most of the stuff I'm doing now is I'm working on fighting. I've injured my shoulder, and so I'm up here in Oklahoma. We were at EH's End Rain this weekend for their End Rain 68. Got to knight one of my squires for his second belt, and it's been a blast up here. But I've injured my shoulder. I have a torn rotator cuff, a torn labrum. So I got my warlord, and then I can't fight immediately. And apparently, how Tice has put it, and Albie from EH has put it, is that's exactly what you're supposed to do. You break yourself, to get your warlords. Now you're fine.
I was going to say, you said I got my warlord, and then you described getting your warlord a second time with the shoulder injury. No, I was making fun of the fact that you got hurt.
Same point. Yeah.
It's like Indiana Jones sliding under the door, grabbing the hat.
Yeah, I think the exact words was, "Man, you're such a great '90s warlord. We're proud of you." So,
So I have one more question before we move on to, because you mentioned your workshop. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I'm the co-owner of Smiley Foamworks, and for any of us who've been around long enough, we probably all remember Warlord Sports. And I got to work over there in the shop, and for quite a while, it was just me and Brett working in the shop, making swords, making wax calibers, doing R&D to figure out stuff. Figured out how to put holes in tubes without a glue seam in it. Made dome foam shields. And so, long story short, finances just weren't that good for Warlord Sports anymore. So it was like, we got to let somebody go. And Brett's the manager. So, Smiley, we're not firing you because you suck, but we're firing you because we can't pay you anymore. But we might hire you back someday. And it was during the summer. I couldn't find anybody that would hire me. That would pay me full time to pay our bills. And so I just started making swords and trying to figure out how I'd start my own business doing the exact same thing. And so Morton, out of the EH at the time, I was king and he was regent, and we started talking during our kingdom visits. And he goes, "This is something I've always wanted to do." And I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I suck at making anything. So what are we going to do?" And I was like, "I don't know." He goes, "Well, what if we partner?" He goes, "I got some finances I can put in." And I was like, okay. So if you can help with the finances and we can help with these things, I can use my knowledge. And we were going to call it the Smiling Smith. And he was like, "Well, what if we call it Smiling Foamworks?" And I was like, "Yeah." And for some reason, we decided to use my mustache as part of the logo, which means I can't shave it ever again, unless it's for some random fundraiser that we can raise, money for. Which I'm still mad that Flo didn't shave his beard, but whatever. So
you didn't meet my. I'm saving me for this year.
I'm saving me.
I'm saving me. But that's another. Ask me about that later. That's another story.
Smiley had a nice beard. Did you see it? Did you see his beard before you shaved? He had a nice beard.
It was beautiful. But so we got together, and Morton picked out the name of Smiling Foamworks. The colors came because I had green and yellow ripstop in my closet, and I were too poor to buy any more. So the covers became green and yellow for the swords, and we started with just making swords. And that was in the end of 2018. And now we're making multiple different types of swords, offering shields. We've partnered with Cassius Apparel to sell tunics and hoods for Cassius Apparel as well, and get some profits from that. And that's really how it came together. It's just one guy going, "I really always wanted to do something like this." And the other guy going, I just need to feed my kids, man. Hey, let's do this. And so here we are. So,
I mean, it's worked pretty well. We've seen a lot of your work down here in the Southeast. So it's, I got to say, nice. I see a lot of your sticks.
Nice. I'm excited. Like that makes me happy when I see pictures and stuff. And it's really hard to miss the green and yellow. So it worked out. It was the biggest mistake we made, but the best marketing tool we've ever had.
So I want to get onto the AI topic just a little bit because I think it's kind of, at least to me, it's extremely interesting, and it's something we've wanted to kind of cover for a bit. So Gavin, I'm going to kick it over to you. Can you tell us what it is you do for AI, and kind of give us the TLDR on what that is?
Right now, I'm the executive chair of the Circle of Monarchs Committee. And so my role is basically to facilitate the functioning of the Circle of Monarchs. One way to think of Amtgard International is kind of like the U.S. government. You know, you have the House and you have the Senate, and both are very important in making the structure that we've established run, right? First, we might want to talk about what is Amtgard International.
Sure.
Absolutely. You're the expert on this one.
As a concept, I mean, and Smiley and I are going to both have related but maybe slightly different perspectives on it. You know, as a concept, it's kind of important to understand. You know, I think everybody here knows what Magic the Gathering is, right?
Yep.
You know, we all probably play it. Can you imagine if you went to every different comic store and they all kind of played Magic the Gathering, but they made their own cards, and some of them had abilities that others didn't have, and you know, just new creature types that you'd never heard of.
Yeah, that's how we did it in high school.
Comic store would be just a landmine of just you never know what you're going to walk into.
Right.
One of the great successes of that game is I can get on a plane and go to Spain right now and sit down at a comic shop and whip out my cards and play with that guy. And we all know the rules. I mean, the cards are in a different language, but they're the same cards, the same rules, the same everything. And immediately we can sit down and we can have a good time.
Yeah.
So one of the underlying concepts behind Amtgard International is to make that happen with foam fighting. You know, and it's not just foam fighting because, you know, Amtgard is a lot more complicated than foam fighting, right? You know, we have this magic system and the club award system. Those are the two defining traits of Amtgard that really separate it from Dagahir, Belagarth, SCA, all the other major LARPs, right?
Right.
It's our award system, which is the foundation of our club. You know, it's our merit badges. I mean, that's why you go to Boy Scouts, is the merit badges. And then, you know, our magic system. And for that to work in the same sense as the Magic the Gathering analogy, there has to be consistency. And this consistency, just like Wizards of the Coast protects their intellectual property, the Amtgard rule set is intellectual property. And Amtgard International was formed, one of the major tenets was to protect that intellectual property and ensure that everyone uses that intellectual property consistently. You know, you show up to a Magic the Gathering event with cards that you just printed yourself, the people running that tournament are going to have something to say about that and probably send you a cease and desist and say you better stop printing those cards.
Right. If you get caught.
Sure.
I don't think you've been to a Magic tournament because they call you out real quick.
Yeah. That's one of the underlying principles. And why do we do that? Because it makes it more fun. I mean, having a random pickup game in Europe with the dude at a comic shop is cool. And now you can do that. I can go to Winter's Edge, drive from Texas, all 11 hours, jump out of the car, and immediately play Amtgard, and we don't even have to talk.
Yeah.
We all are on the same page. We know what's happening. I know what you're doing. You know what I'm doing, and we can play the game, and we can have a great time.
So back in 6, there was a time period that there was a inter-kingdom, I think, COM vote for some changes to rules and things, and there was a time period where you kind of had to check and see if they were using those at one point. So this makes it to where you don't have to check and see, like, hey, are we double fireballing people out of ice ball and killing them, or are we just, you know, not doing that today? Kind of deal.
And as we grew, you know, the more you grow, the more you become susceptible to this kind of diversions within the game.
Yeah.
And that's when that started to happen. People were like, well, we either stop growing or just splinter, or we do something about it.
Yep.
And Amtgard International was one of those things we did about it. An organization whose purpose is to maintain cohesion of the game so that it can grow in a manner where everyone can participate and be on the same level. I mean, that's the spirit of it, you know, and that's what Amtgard International is. And then it has to be a legal entity, because you just, let's say somebody wants to make a massive kingdom in Massachusetts and play a kind of version of Amtgard. If we didn't have an actual legal body with actual trademarks and actual things, there's nothing we could do about it, and the game would splinter anyway.
Right.
Right. So the fact that Amtgard International is a true legal organization is what gives us the power to hold the game together. And the players, us, you know, we vote representatives basically to go to AI to fulfill this mission, which all of Amtgard decided we wanted to do. And that is to protect our intellectual property so that the game can grow in a consistent manner that allows everyone to play together.
Yeah. That's, I mean, very understandable. Smiley, you looked like you were about to say something.
No, I mean, I don't know why I'm here. I mean, Gavin Gavin got it all. It's fine. I'm just gonna check out. It's good.
Fair enough.
You're here for the mustache, brother.
That is true. That is true. So, no, but Gavin's right. And if you'll notice, a lot of the stuff that Gavin talked about dealt specifically with the rules of play, and that's where the Circle of Monarchs comes in. And so, what we've been battling with when we talk about Amtgard International is, you hear those conspiracy theories, right? Like, AI is the Illuminati, and we're all screwed, right? We just don't know it yet. But in reality, when people well, I mean, it's almost that meme. Like, wait, are we the bad guys?
Yeah, I didn't get a robe. I don't know. I didn't get nothing.
It's in the mail, COD. Yes. It's fine. But that's the other side. When everybody says, AI, we're probably sitting at our parks or going to, IK events and stuff, and we'll hear people talk about AI this and AI that. And a lot of people, when we talk about AI, just assume that AI is the board of directors. And so, when we look at that and all the people have bad stuff that's happened with them or good things that happen with them, everybody has an opinion. But in reality, AI isn't just a board of directors. You have Amtgard International Circle of Monarchs. You have Amtgard International Executive Committee. You have Amtgard International Board of Directors. And so with Gavin, where he's at, he chairs the committee, which is then making sure, like you said, the Circle of Monarchs is functioning like it's supposed to. And they're responsible for the rules of play. They're responsible for the ones, if something's going to change, it's going to go through them on how we're going to look at our rule book. And for the board of directors, we are that legal entity. We have the IP and the trademarks, and we manage all of those things. Here pretty soon, we might have some stuff coming out, and I'll drop this now, and I'm sure some people on the board might be like, why did you tell them early? Just to get interest drummed up. But, we're even looking at stuff that's in our rule book, like Clippy the Phoenix. Well, what if we had Clippy the Phoenix on a t-shirt? Or what if we made him a plushie in every class that you could play in Amtgard? I would take one, so.
Also make him throw illegal.
Oh.
Yeah, make him throw illegal. Right? What if all of a sudden, we just thought Flow was so cool, we'd make just like little heads with beards on them and put like a wizard face on it and be like, it's not really Flow, it's just a wizard. Please. I'm just saying, but it's an Amtgard wizard.
His ego will eclipse the sun. You can't.
Too late.
Yeah, it's too late for that. I mean, just look at how much he thought his beard was worth. We could have helped so many more children, you bastard. So, and all of those things.
You set a high bar for high quality.
Oh my God. But that's where we're at, is when we say Amtgard International, it's not just your board of directors and it's not just your Circle of Monarchs. It's all of it together makes up Amtgard International. And Gavin nailed it. Think of our government here in the United States. We have different branches that do different things for a reason. And so, you're not going to see me as the president of the board of directors going over to the Circle of Monarchs and trying to run everything and set up the agenda and do all this stuff, because that's what Gavin's there for. Plus, that's just not something I want to do. Dealing with 20 plus monarchs. Good luck, Gavin. Have a blast. It's all yours, buddy.
You actually touched on something that I wanted to make a very fine point on as well, which is that AI as the entity is not just AI beauty. It's people like me, the senator of Winter's Edge. Like when people say, oh, AI did this thing, well, that also comes down to your kingdom.
Right.
Like that, they don't, AI BOD doesn't do anything without, AI com also, sort of giving the thumbs up, thumbs down.
Right.
You're also on the special committee too. You're one of the ones deciding the funding structure. You're on the licensing fee committee now.
Yeah.
So it is people from every kingdom.
Yeah,
but
literally.
I think that the mistake, I guess if we want to call it that, comes from the fact that colloquially we refer to AIBOD quite a bit. And we refer to AIBOD when we actually mean one of the other bodies that also makes up Amtgard International, but people generically, they refer to the Circle of Monarchs as a Circle of Monarchs, at least in the kingdoms that I've been a part of, right? Yeah. Or the International Circle of Monarchs, however you want to say it. But they never connect the fact that this is still Amtgard International. Your kingdom representative is still part of that cabal that you are claiming. And when you become monarch, I guess you automatically get a bathrobe as well?
Yeah, it's Senator in our kingdom now because we split the rollout. But yeah, apparently.
Do that, Gavin. That's it. Remember for our next meeting, bathrobes with Flippy on the back of it. You know, well,
Yes.
Winner's edge votes yes.
it says Amtgard.
Do you need a vote or like I second? Yeah, it's fine.
Done.
No,
Amtgard International bathrobes.
The Kingdom of Flow votes yes.
And we've been trying to change that language by using the words AI-com more often, you know. And the truth is, the com does almost everything that affects the average player. The BOD has very little power to affect anything that would affect a player.
Can you give us an example of like what the? Okay, yeah, I think you were about to.
Well, I'll let him speak to, you know, but the com, which I facilitate the functioning of, we decide the rules. Our members are the ones that are responsible for banning players. Any significant changes to club structure and awards comes through the com. When this funding agreement that we're going to decide how much kingdoms are going to contribute financially to Amtgard International is coming through the com. So it's really the circle of monarchs that all the things that people are unhappy about typically that does these things. You know, they're just unhappy where they shouldn't be. You know, because in my opinion, most of the actions have helped this game to grow. But it's the com that does this. The BOD is concerned with not frivolous, but highfalutin things like trademark language and all this other stuff. And, well, does our trademark adequately cover print materials versus online materials, you know, and all this legal stuff? You know, it really doesn't affect your average player.
Right. And I think that's the main thing. Like for us as a board of directors, that's exactly what we're here to do. And so in a context of things that would affect players, it would come down to the kingdoms. So if a kingdom comes out and they just do something horrendous, like your monarchy or the kingdom as a whole just hasn't taken care of something, I don't know, to think of your worst case scenario, and it violates the contract of what the kingdom has signed to play Amtgard, right?
Right.
Then our board of directors has the right that we can come in and say we're pulling your contract. You're no longer a kingdom, and that doesn't have to go through the circle of monarchs. The board is protecting those proprietary rights and that IP. If we decided we don't care that these guys are convicted pedophiles and they're going to run our kingdom, and we're going to go, well, we do, and so you're not going to do that. Yeah. We're revoking your contract. You're no longer a kingdom. But it's got to be within the contract to violate those things. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten messages or phone calls, and it's like, I got banned. I got banned, and I don't know. We'll pick a spot. I got banned in 9 Blades. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to tell you to go to your kingdom officers and ask what the system is to appeal that, or go through our ombudsman to have this mediation to be able to go that they can point you to your corpora, what functions that you do have, what you can do. Because my job is not to step into a kingdom and say, I'm going to tell you what to do.
Right.
And our board of directors is built for that. And since I've been president, we've played long enough. We understand there's things that have happened, and people have certain very specific, one person has done certain things. And in that, we sit back and go, that's what they've always done. And I made it a very big point for the past couple of years to go, that's not what our board's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And our kingdom should have some type of autonomy to be their own kingdom. And, each kingdom has its own culture. Our board's not going to step in to do those things anymore, period, because that's not what we function as. We're over here trying to figure out how to fundraise so we can keep stuff like the orc, going, and the website funded. Hopefully get a far better website than we have now. Mm-hmm. Where are our finances at to do these types of things? How are we going to make sure that the taxes are paid? How are we going to make sure the trademarks are filed properly? How are we going to protect all of these legal, mundane issues and have this budget that we can look at the com and go, okay, we've set our budget, and can you help us fund it? And the com can look at us and go, we voted, we're not going to pay you anything. We're going to be like, okay, well, that kind of sucks. We got to figure this out. But I'm hoping we're getting to a point that the board of directors can stand on its own 2 feet for Amtgard International and really start finding ways to fund everything properly. And again, that's kind of where the licensing agreement and stuff's coming from, to where we can start moving towards that direction. But hey, we had a lawsuit. We finally settled that.
Yeah,
I'm happy. I can live. So
yeah, I imagine that must have been a nightmare from your end of things for sure.
Oh yeah.
So just in terms of making the game better and everything else, a lot of us think that growing the game is making the game better. Is there anything on either? I guess this is more be an AI BOD thing. Is there anything growing the game wise that you would like to do? I know you mentioned the website. Are there things like taking on ads and stuff like that you would do to grow the game, or is there a different focus entirely that you might have?
No.
So,
yeah, go ahead. Smiley.
No, go ahead, Gavin. You're good.
Well, I'd say that in our recent conversations, I view that the board itself is finally, I don't want to say maturing, but maturing in the sense that you leave something on the shelf and it gets better. With time, things are settling in. I mean, this is like year 6 or 7 of it, and we finally got the roles. We have the trademark secured. We have our intellectual property secured. And now we're turning this big ship to that exact question. Okay. And the primary function of AI should be to grow the game. So we're talking about things like rule books with good, conducive and uniform artwork that we could pay for, hardcover rule books, licensing, toys, things that are going to literally spread the game through word of mouth, that when you're Amazoning and you start to see all these products pop up and advertisements, that we're getting people through using technology and using social media but on a higher level, like a corporation would, for engagement, and yes, so engagement and growing the game, I think that's one of the major directions we're now looking at the board, now that a lot of the dust has settled and we're finally fairly confident what the roles of AI are, or trademarks are secured, that is the future that we want to look at.
Man, could you imagine going down to Books A Million, looking at the D&D stuff or whatever, and then finding an Amtgard rule book sitting on the shelf?
So fucking
No,
cool.
because our Books A Million closed.
I mean, fair. It was the first store that came to mind for some reason.
Barnes and Noble.
Or it shows up in the "you may also like" on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's probably more likely, but still, either way.
we live in a reality where there's a very real chance that you're delivering somebody's Amtgard rulebook.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean that's the whole point is, at some point in time, we go back to how we started the discussion of like what got you into the game, what got you started, and that's still relevant today, even for those of us who have been playing for a long time. I remember just this weekend being at Emerald Hills' End Rain and sitting and looking at all these new faces since I moved 2.5 years ago, and going, man, I don't know half these people, and the other half I do know, and seeing the smiles on these faces and seeing people passionate about playing, and some of them being complete and total role-playing individuals that, you talk to them and they're like, well, I'm Lord Wadada from Mount Duda. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm Smiley. I'm going to hit you with a stick. Is that okay? But, and you have this camaraderie of all these people coming together, and it's exciting. And it's an environment where people are accepted. I mean, my background, I was a kid that was on the verge of wanting to commit suicide, and I didn't want anything to do with anybody anymore. And I found, for lack of better words, this nerd community that said, you're just fine as you are. And, come and hang out with us. And how can we encourage you? Now, I remember being that teenager going through school and being encouraged, if you have to get schoolwork done or you got a test coming up, go study for it, because that's going to be really important. And I needed people like that in my life. And at the moments when I was at my lowest, just outside of any Amtgard context, those people that played Amtgard were the first ones that were there for me. My entire background, and most people know this, but I'm a pastor in my community. I pastor a small church, and somehow I'm playing this silly game. And in my community of Christianity, I've been told you're going to hell for playing Amtgard because it has wizards and magic. And I'm like, you're an idiot. That's not how that works. But I've also had my jobs called into question, where people have asked that I should be fired from my job. And I've had my bosses, say, well, what is this Amtgard stuff? And now I'm at a point, like, I'm about to lose my job and I don't know if I can feed my kids, and what do I do? And I remember just mentioning it to, a couple of people through the old school Yahoo groups. And next thing I knew is my boss is calling me saying, can you tell people to stop emailing and calling me about what you're doing in Amtgard, and how you're a great representative. Yeah. And so it's like, like this guy's a great representative for Christianity. And he's like, I got all these letters, just tell them to stop. I'm going to defend you. I got you backed up. You're going to keep your job. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. That's great. And then come to find out, people are calling me and telling me this is what I did. And I was like, thanks. Like, you didn't have to do that. And almost 100% of them were not believers, were not Christian in their religion like I was. but they were willing, because we had a connection through Amtgard and knew me, were willing to go to bat for me. And I didn't have that from anybody else that was actually believers that knew me personally at the time.
Yeah.
And so if that gives you any contrast of where my personal life has been, that's what Amtgard has been for me. It's literally become this society that has supported me, encouraged me, pushed me on to be, the decent human being that I am today. And I think we still have that. So if we can show people those things, and we can market those things, we can get our rule books out, we can have people come to the parks, and we can show them where we're at, and we can do all that stuff and figure out how, from our perspective as big, board of directors, that I don't mean to say simplicity of something is, but that simple thing can be, and no, that's what a lot of people are looking for in today's world. We still have something.
Yeah, it's
and
a
so
service that we can provide to so many people that I think we don't look at it as a service sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key, right? Because we still have the talks, like, you guys open up, are we calling it a sport? Yeah, we're calling it a sport. Is it a LARP? Yeah, it's a LARP too. But it's also it's the service we're providing too. And so when I looked at everybody at EH and just watched, it was an awesome event. Great fighters. We had Glenn down and Termis and Professor and some just really good fighters in general. We had some great leadership. The Autocrat team did amazing. And then just watching these people that literally, when you look around, you realize not a single one of you would even know each other or probably hang out with each other if it wasn't for Amtgard coming to this event. And everybody was having a blast. It was great stuff. And we have something. Why not show other people that you have something amazing here that you can be a part of too, regardless of how goofy it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my perspective leading our board is we may be in a position to work with our executive committee, with Gavin, with the Circle of Monarchs, and try to do all these things that are important. Look at the financial and mundane side of things, the IP and the trademarks and legal side of stuff, and the marketing. But we can never forget why we started doing all this to begin with, or we're just going to become callous and cold to what the actual, dare I say, magic of this game really is for people.
And I agree. And, serving on Amtgard International, hey, guys, it's not fun.
No, it is not.
Guys, it's not wrong.
No.
It's not.
Hey, there's
exciting.
board positions are opening up. Run for them. Go for it. It's a blast.
It's tedious, and there's a lot of research, and you got to be on top of your game, and you have to, as directing the Circle of Monarchs, you got to herd cats. It's a lot of work. But the only reason that all of us currently on the board do it is for exactly what Dusty was talking about. It is because we feel blessed for what Amtgard has given us, and we want more kids to have the same thing and to have the same experience. I want more 20-year-old kids to have what I have growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 30 years old. I've been in Amtgard 30 years. God, I wish I was 30 years old. I'm about to turn almost 50 years old, and I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm still serving at a high level. I cooked 5,000 plates of food in the Celestial Kingdom over the past 4 years. So awesome. I'm showing up all the time doing the things. Why? Because I want other people to love it. I've done it all 100 times, and for me, I still enjoy Amtgard, don't get me wrong, but I enjoy watching other people enjoy it for the first time more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a point everybody moves to after playing for a while, is like, this is cool. I want my friends to like this too. I think it's a natural thing. You like something, you want your friends to like it. And you that picks up pretty naturally for most people, I think.
Yeah. And I'd say that's the board is not an amorphous thing, and the comm is not an amorphous thing. It's just players. It's just players who love to play and want other people to play. So when you say AI, you should really be saying Jennifer and Shannon and Cassio and Smiley, and just talk about us like normal people, because we're just the players that are out there at park with you and at the events with you and serving in the trenches like the rest of you. We just have decided for some insane reason to do this quite unfun job for 2 years, and then somebody else is hopefully gonna have the will and the want to do it. And that's what it is you want to do it because you want to see the game succeed. And when you get a little older, you're like, okay, I've got enough life experience, I can take on this job and I can do this. And that's kind of where we're at.
This sort of points me to my next question, and that is, what is the hardest part of your jobs, respectively? And I guess we'll kick off with Smiley first, if we want to do it that way. Like, what is the most difficult part of serving on AIBOD? Like, what's I guess the hardest challenge you've had? And it can be the lawsuit if that's
The hardest challenge is probably just people. People are going to be people, and they'll have different ideas and different expectations. And I'll give examples too. I've had people approach me and tell me I've had ulterior motives to be on AIBOD because I own Smiling Foamworks, and so it's I'm trying to create Smiley Guard, and again, the conspiracy theories, or people just coming over thinking that you're the AIBOD president, you can do whatever you want, so fix this or do this. Yeah, right. Like, I can't even get into our org and delete anything or do anything except for my own park, and that's because I'm our local prime minister. That's it, right? So it's like, guys, I'm very limited as to what I can do. I don't know who you think I am. I've had people make accusations that that I'm a millionaire because of what I do with AIBOD and with Smiling Foamworks. And I'm like, man, if that's the case, you guys should see my busted up van with duct tape on the bumpers that Chewy decided to get an entire group of people to autograph. So we got pictures. It's it's amazing, but I don't think people realize it too. I think that's the hardest part. And Gavin really nailed that. Is we are just like everyone else that plays the game. I remember going to Castlemania as a vendor, and just doing the best I could. And the guy who was helping me, one of my squires, Jonathan Hawkmoon, he was cranking out swords and working his heart out, and still wanting to go play battle games and having a blast. And then bad weather comes, tornadoes, and it was like, what is going on? And then here's Gavin over here, because a vendor decided to put a tent spike through a water line, and he's like digging in the ground and mud all over the place. And he's like, no, I can fix it. I got it. Don't worry about it. And it's like, but you're Gavin, and it's like, yep, I'm that guy. And so but that's honestly,
mud up to the shoulders, trying to fix a water pipe.
Yep. And I mean, I remember the storm tore up a lot of stuff, and we're walking around trying to help everybody, and everybody's helping everybody. I'm the same guy that gets shot in the face with an arrow that goes, that was painful, just like anyone else, when you're on the battlefield. And I'm also the same guy that gets joy out of teaching someone how to do something and then watching them do it. Man, that's awesome. And I think that's the hardest thing for me sitting on the board of directors is you get into this position and people are kind of have this, this pedestal that they think all of a sudden you're sitting on, and go, man, that's those people that rule everything.
Right.
And really, that's not how that works in any context, anywhere. I mean, if you guys just want to join for one of our BOD meetings, go for it. But they usually last 4 hours. Come on, let's go through it. Yeah. And it's usually us talking back and forth or having some argument about something or not understanding something, and just trying to do the best we can to figure it out with what we know. And so I think it's the hard part, is just being somebody in the game that people think that there's something more important about you than any other player, when in reality that's just not reality. That's not truth.
Fair. Gavin, do you echo that, or is there a more difficult part of being the ExCom chair?
I forgot the question. That's what it was. The most difficult part.
Most difficult part of your
Gavin.
position.
He's just listening. Like, oh, that sounds amazing. I don't know what he's talking about.
I'm not sure if it's difficult per se. It is time consuming, right? If you want to do it right. So as executive chair, my job is to make sure that every single monarch, which changes fast as the wind, with 22 kingdoms, somebody's changing every week. And as the executive committee, we constantly have to be on top of getting these people to sign non-disclosure agreements and rotating them in and rotating them out, and privileges and keeping track of who is who. And I have to disseminate all the information that the com is going to decide about the game to every player in a thoughtful manner. I have to review it. Is this readable? Is this clear? Will people understand it? I have to oversee all the committees. Right now, the rules rep organizer, him and I just had a meeting the other night. I'm like, are you on top of your stuff? Are you doing things well? Do you need our help? The version 9 committee, where we're exploring a possible new version of the rule book. They're also underneath the executive committee. I have to communicate with them. Or you guys have the resources you need? How is this going? Mm-hmm. It's a very managerial role, sort of. I don't actually get to decide anything.
Yeah.
At all. So for someone to say that I have any power, I don't. Yeah, maybe perhaps I can kind of steer the ship gently just by saying, look at this.
Yeah.
And getting someone excited about it, or getting the comm excited about something. But as far as doing anything, I have zero power, period. Zilch nada. I just make sure that the comm is able to exercise their power in an informed manner.
Right.
That's my job. So I'd say herding cats, getting comm members. Well, there is a difficult thing. Getting them to read.
Yeah.
Can you please at least read this before the meeting? We get into the meeting. They're like, what does that say? I'm like, you've had 2 months to read this one paragraph. Come on. Are you serious?
There was a whole South Park episode on this, if I remember correctly.
Can it read? Sometimes I do want to stitch them together as a centipede. I guess. I don't know, whatever that was. That's the most difficult part, getting the comm to actually read legislation before they show up to the meeting.
And understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and understand it.
To save time, I'm not going to go into my entire flow story about this because our longtime listeners will have heard it a million times. I'm going to give a super abridged version of it, though. If everyone that's not in your in-group is part of the Illuminati, and your monarchy is occasionally part of the Illuminati, and the people on your board of directors are part of the Illuminati, and also Amtgard International, how many people are not a member of the Illuminati? Like, how many few of us are there? Oh, and your Knight Circle, I forgot about your Knight Circle, are also a member of. How many few are left that aren't?
Look, man, we're running out of robes.
Yeah. We've been stealing them from hotels.
That's the secret of the Illuminati. Everybody's in the Illuminati, and they just don't know it yet. And so, it's like the Manchurian Candidate. There's going to be a certain sound at an event one day, and everybody's just going to pop their heads up and go, yes, I will say I like this cheeseburger.
Taco Bell event, Mexican pizza is back. 17
right,
blue 24.
It'll be something crazy like that. Like, for some reason I do want to go buy all the red pins at Walmart. I don't know why though.
Yeah. I mean, let's cut it down to what it is. The way that we think about things is important because it influences our outlook on the world. What's really happening is sometimes people do things that you either 1, don't understand, 2, are not allowed to know about, or 3, understand and know about but don't like. That's going to happen in every aspect of your life. Amtgard isn't special.
No, if anything, Amtgard's a microcosm of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't know. Longtime listeners know that's a big pet. The whole Illuminati conversation is a big pet peeve of mine because if you follow it to its logical conclusion, you're right, Smiley. Everyone ends up being in the Illuminati except for whomever's claiming that the Illuminati exists and also 2 of their friends or something like that. And if their friends get in those positions, it's like, oh, finally we have someone that's not a member of the Illuminati.
He's our guy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's insane. I actually have a question for both of you. In the past how long have you both been serving on the board? You said it's a 2-year term, right?
Yeah.
So are both of your terms concurrent? So you've both been in for 1 year, 18 months?
They are, but I was appointed to fill a vacancy, so I've only been on since October of last year, but I will be running for a full term as executive chair coming up for 2 more years.
Right.
Okay. So
I've
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I've been there. Let's see, my term. I'm on my 2nd term, and it will end at the Circle of Monarchs meeting at Gathering of the Kingdoms. That's the official name now.
Can we just talk about making that the Insane Crown Posse, just for a minute?
Dude, I'm down, man. Everybody's gonna wear paint. We'll get some fuego in there. It's fine. It's good. No problem. But yeah, my term will end at that meeting in 2023, and so I've served so we're looking at 2.5 years.
Oh wow!
Come July, because I stepped into a seat on the board that was vacated by the individual that was the executive chair that went over and was appointed and elected to the executive chair before Gavin was, and so that's how I got on the board. And I was the only one that ran for that position too. So the whole Circle of Monarchs were like, well, yeah, I guess we're voting for Smiley.
Yeah.
Because there's no one else.
So my question for you, and we're getting really close to time here. Cabbage may have had some more questions for you, but mine was, since you've been serving, or maybe even a little bit before you've been serving, since you just in terms of Amtgard time just recently stepped up into this role, Gavin. What are some things that AI has done that you're really proud of?
Well, right now, I think that the version 9 committee, not only, regardless of how you feel about V9, but just the work this committee has put into actually generating data for Amtgard, so that we gotta really evaluate our game for the first time. We have like this full game-wide perspective on all kinds of things about our gameplay and about our rule sets. And they have just done a fantastic job of putting together really cohesive, good data. I know everybody hates, it's a game. Why do we have data? Well, you look, if we have an international organization, and if that's what we want it to be big, we need to understand it.
Right.
At a really granular level. And they've really helped us to do that. We've recently been doing work on this funding proposal, which is finally going to give us a permanent way to ensure that we can do all these things that we're talking about. And Cabbage is on the committee too. He knows what we're
fingers
with that.
Mega crossed, hopefully, yes.
And I've got a lot of things, in store for the next 2 years. I'll only be in here 7, 8, 9 months now. It's kind of limited how I can answer that question, but my future hope is I have been listening, because that is my job as the chair, to all the monarchs and concerns in Amtgard at large, and as executive chair, I want to be able to bring these concerns to the Circle of Monarchs in an effective way. So I'd say I'm proud that I've been listening, and that I want to use the next 2 years to take what I've been sensing from the game and make those changes that I think that people will enjoy Amtgard more, because those changes have been made, And they're still, ultimately, I'm not going to make those changes. I'm just going to present them to the people who can make those changes, and hopefully they decide what's best for the game.
Right, at least facilitate the discussion.
Right.
Yeah, totally agree with you on the V9 committee too. We've had Wonjo and the rest of the V9 committee on more than once now. And Wonjo, if you're listening to this, if you guys have anything that you'd want to share, we'd love to have you back on for an update too.
Yeah, Wonjo's been great. I think a lot of the pushback too, because you said people don't like the data, and a lot of I've seen some of the pushback right on the B&B channels and everything else, and a lot of people don't like the surveys and the data, but I don't think they understand enough about how data collection goes, because you have to be very specific on how you ask certain questions and things like that. So I think a lot of the pushback is, again, like Flo mentioned earlier, just sort of a not understanding of how that role actually functions.
And it'll never be perfect. There's response bias in these sorts of data. I'm a scientist, it's my job. And yet, yes, this data is never publishable because there's an inherent baked-in response bias because of the way we're conducting the surveys. Sure, we understand that. But it still helps us understand our game in a way we never have before.
Right. Now, Smiley, the same question to you, is there anything you're particularly proud of? We started on the negative, what was the worst part? What's something that you're, like a crowning achievement of any kind?
I think winning the lawsuit and getting our attorneys 100% paid.
Yeah.
I'm very happy about that. To where I don't have to look at kingdoms anymore and go, I know it sucks, but we really need each kingdom to pay like almost $2,000. So we can get this done. Once the lawsuit was won, I think that was one of the happiest things. One of the greatest things I was the happiest about coming onto the board with the lawsuit already in progress for the trademark,
God,
and then being able to, so I mean, I'm coming in. It's like, we stuck at the lawsuit. Now here's all the stuff, and as a player, you hear everything, and then you get on the board and you're like, oh, this is stupid. What is this guy thinking? So, but once we got the ruling that we won, I pushed our board really hard to look at our finances and ask the question: Can we pay off our attorneys now? And regardless if all of our kingdoms had given, regardless if all the funds had been caught up to what all the kingdoms had agreed with, if we have the funds now, can we pay everything now and be done? And the answer was, yeah, we can do that. We'll have to kind of be very careful on what we do next financially, but we can do that now. And so we voted and pulled the trigger and said, okay, we're going to pay it all off and we're done. And that's that was one of the best things that I was happy about. I think the other thing that parallels to it pretty the same is I feel like we have I feel like we have replaced the reputation that the board of directors for Amtgard once had with other individuals on there to a more positive image and to a more positive side. And we become far more transparent than what the board used to be before I got on the board. So those are probably the two things that I'm the happiest about, is getting that lawsuit settled and just being transparent with what we're doing and having a more positive light in how we're trying to help Amtgard as a whole.
Yeah. So mentioning transparency, for those who are just kind of blindly saying AI did this, where can they go to see like these decisions and stuff like that?
So all of our meeting minutes for every month is posted to the Amtgard International Facebook page. And so you can go on there, and we always have our meeting, and then the next meeting we ratify those minutes, make sure there's no changes that need to happen. We only have one meeting a month, and like I said, we meet for like 4 hours, so we're going to continue to only have one meeting a month, 4-hour meetings. I don't want to have like 4-hour meetings. Yeah. So those minutes are always a month behind because we ratify them first, just make sure there's no adjustments that need to be made, and then that's published. So if you're looking at it at March, if you're looking at that Facebook page in March, you're going to find February's minutes, probably pop up first. But you can go there. And then anything else like that, it's like, man, I really want to know more about the finances, or, what are we spending our money on, or can we ask that question, or we're just kind of curious about X, Y, or Z. All of us on the board are open. So you can also go to our website and find contact information for all of us with under the board of directors section or the staff section. You'll have board of directors and volunteers underneath that, and you'll find profiles for all of the members of the board of directors, and an email that you can send out emails to us and ask us questions, and either we're going to say, look, I can't tell you specifics on this that's covered under an NDA, but I can tell you all of these things, and those are the ways you can reach out to us.
So is it just going back to the us winning the lawsuit and you getting that paid off and everything? Did you see, I don't know if you're friends with, I think it's Glenn on Facebook. Did you see where Glenn got the person who had started this whole issue, got him like formally reprimanded by the Virginia State Bar? Is that not a cherry on top?
No. Man, and Glenn was at the event this weekend. If I'd have known that,
it was
I got a high five him.
Oh, no, not Glenn. I'm sorry, Ben. You're right. They both have an N in there. But yeah,
That's
Ben.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah, got him like formally reprimanded by the Virginia State Bar. If you get a chance and you want a cherry on top of that sundae, go read that because it's good.
Cool.
That is fantastic. That makes me so happy.
Yeah,
so very happy. Because I mean, and that's the other side. If you were on the back end of this, and saying these things, I know I can share all the stuff without breaking anything, but you start watching how everything's filed and what he's doing, and you start realizing this guy legitimately is just trying to screw somebody else over for his own benefit. There is no rhyme or reason to what he's doing whatsoever. And it was very frustrating just to watch the whole thing take place.
Yeah, one of the like legal reprimands that he got was like arguing in bad faith and like manipulating the law for his own benefit. It was pretty saucy from a legal standpoint, right? I mean, it's probably boring, but it's cool.
It's fantastic.
And I'd say for the COM, the same thing is true. You can go to our Facebook page and find meeting minutes there, and you'll be able to see every single vote that the Circle of Monarchs passed, and you'll be able to see how every single individual member voted.
Yep.
So those precise records are on the Facebook page.
Now you can also go watch a 4-hour YouTube video or a 9-hour YouTube video of our annual meeting.
I'd say you probably just want to do the minutes.
Yeah.
One of the things I have in development that I'm going to do the next 2 years is I'm putting together a one-stop landing shop for Amtgard international information. It's going to be like a single web page that you go to. It's built on a platform called Trello, basically. But you just be able to click.
Yes, we use Trello.
Little icons because it's going to be one page, one board, and see all this stuff. Every AI document, it'll take you there. Every COM document, it'll take you there. It'll have the rules. It'll have everything. It'll just be one page, big colorful buttons you can click on. And so hopefully we can get that widely disseminated. and it will just make all this stuff much more accessible, zero digging, so that anybody who's ever interested can just go here and click the button that they want to know about. That's one of my big goals, for the next couple of years, is to really get that on board and make that happen.
I lived my whole life on Trello.
Yeah, Trello is WAK tested and WAK approved. It's how we do all of the notes for our show as well. Hey, before we move on, I wanted to ask too, if someone was interested in joining Amtgard International, how would they go about doing that?
Well, that's a good question. So apparently the Illuminati is not a very big draw. We have two open positions for the Illuminati, otherwise known as the Amtgard International Board of Directors. And after widely announcing this for a month or two, we have 3 applicants.
I thought you were going to say we now have 3 seats available.
Somebody thought they had to get whacked. So only 3 people have applied to fill these 2 seats. So for all of you out there who are complaining about AI, I suggest you apply, because you'll probably get in.
Well, and for anyone who thinks like, oh, there's no way I could ever do that, I don't have the qualifications, it seems like you can jump on with relatively little experience and get onboarded fairly quickly.
Certainly, and that information is there. Rationality is pretty much the only requirement. Are you a rational person?
We're doomed.
And you can do this job. Now, of course, you'll do a better job, yes, if you understand some legal points and if you have at least some understanding of, data management, other things that we may come across. If you're 19 and your only job has ever been, fast food, it might be a little bit, maybe not. It's really hard to say. Who knows? They could be the best board member ever.
Well, I was going to say,
so
if you're committed
really want to do it, like I said, being committed and being a rational person is pretty much the only requirement.
I mean, if you're 19 and your only job experience is fast food, that might be a hell of a resume builder too.
Yeah.
Right. No kidding. But yeah, no, and that's the key. Like if you so the other thing is you can also go to our website and when you look underneath the staff part and it talks about has the section for volunteers and the board of directors, you'll also find that positions that are open that people were looking for volunteers and other positions on other committees to serve and help and lead and do all this other stuff, whether that's fundraising committee or the license committee or rulebook, whatever. You can find that at amtgard.com as well. And then the other side of that is if you're looking on just serving on the board of directors directly itself and trying to become a director of the board, what I did is I just talked to my Kingdom Monarch and asked and said, hey, I'm interested. Could you put my name forward whenever there's an election or one of the seats come open? And that's what he did. And that's how I got on the board. And so I would do the same. I would tell anybody the same thing, talk to your senators or your comm representative or your monarch, whatever title they have at the moment, and just tell them here it is. And you'll probably have to put together a resume because the Circle of Monarchs is going to want to know because they're going to vote on you. But those are the easiest way to do that.
Well, I mean, you kind of touched on the other thing too, is that AI in general is not just AIBOD, it's the Circle of Monarchs. So you can also just run for monarch or senator depending upon your kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's the biggest thing in my personal opinion. I think it would be wiser if there was more kingdoms that had written to the Kapora a senator position that was longer than just 6 months.
Yes.
Yep.
At least I would have less gray hair if they actually did that.
Yep.
But run for monarch, talk to your kingdom monarchy if there's a senator written to your Kapora, and just ask. I think I'd be really good for this job. Would you recommend me or vote on us?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a final question we ask before we wind down, but I have one other question for you before we get to it. I'm going to give you the final question just so you can think about it because it's always the hardest one. So our last question that we're going to get to is, tell us a fun, funny, interesting, crazy Amtgard story from all of your years of experience. Now, while that's on the back burner...
That's legal to share.
They're on the board. They know it. It's fine. So
I'm out. I got nothing.
We're losing you, Smiley.
Going through a tunnel. We're in a garage. So before we get to that question, I do want to give you some time to think about it. I just want to kind of float the question to you now. Is there anything about AI Com or AI Board of Directors or just AI in general that you would like the viewers to know? Anything that we haven't covered? This is your free space to say whatever it is that you think is most important.
this game works with the organization that we have in the players, and it can change and it can be function. So if you want to see change and you want to see something like that, don't look at these positions and think to yourself, I can't do that because I'm a new player or I'm an old player and this just isn't how things used to be. Go for it. Try it out. I just, last year I got to knight my first squire. He got his, crown belt for being king of the Emerald Hills multiple times. And he's only been playing for 6 years at this point. When we knighted him, he played for 5. When he became king, he had played for 2.5 years or 2 years. And so I'll be the first one to tell anybody, try it, go for it. It's not, I know it seems intimidating, but I promise you anybody can honestly do this. And especially if you have people that are already there with experience. And that's where our board, that's where the COM's at. That's where the ExCom's at. There are already people there with some experience or lots of experience. Jump into it and see what you can learn too. And you might get it done with it and go, screw these guys. I'm never doing that again. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I think it can be very rewarding too.
Fair enough. And Gavin, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we get into that fun, funny, crazy story bit?
I would echo Smiley that, if you're passionate about this club, come do this, because that's really the main goal of this whole thing. We made it as a club. We made AI. The club made AI to protect the club and to make the club better. And so if that's what you want to do also, come do this. It's a new way to do that. And, and it's a way to take that next step and to really give more to your organization. And if that's what you feel you want, you should do it, and you should go for it. And always I recommend starting out at your kingdom, of course. It might be a bit much, to go straight from a barony to running for AI. But if you say, okay, I've autocrated a few events, I've been monarch, well, now, hey, it's the next step. If you still want to apply to these positions, like I said, we got 3 applicants for the board. Mm-hmm. And so either there's not enough interest and we're not advertising enough for the positions, or there's something about them that seems intimidating. And I assure you they're not. Right. Right. If you want to do a good job, you will do a good job, because being dedicated and wanting to help your club is the most important part here.
Totally understandable. Mm-hmm. And in the links to the show, when it releases on Friday, we will post a link to that volunteers position on the Amtgard webpage, as well as a link to the Amtgard International Facebook page where they can see those minutes and everything else. If there's any other links you want dropped in, just shoot me a message. I'll make sure they make it in. Now comes the hardest question that we always give. Fun, funny, crazy Amtgard story. Now, Smiley, you've had the most time to prepare, so we're going to start with you.
So mine's actually an Eramithros story. Yeah. Oh yeah. So here we are, right? And it doesn't involve a box of Franzia.
I'm shocked.
It's okay.
To be perfectly honest.
Who was it that ran the comic book that? JD was always a box of Franzia.
That was Snicker.
That was Snicker. And, Snicker founded our park. Way out here in Tennessee, he left Dragonspine, and him and Kay, Calidor, not that Calidor, a different Calidor.
I had always wondered what happened to the Snicker, man. So it was him and Farrell Lynn. Those were the 2 that did the comic together for
nice. He's still huge on the Renfest scene.
Nice.
Is he really? Oh, that's awesome.
Last time I ran into him, his band was playing at a pub here. And I smacked one of my friends with a ham sandwich and threw shredded lettuce all over the stage.
Well,
we got kicked out.
There's our crazy story. We're done.
No, we don't get out that easy.
Roll the credits.
You had a story with Eramithros, so we got to hear it.
So we're at Gotzi. I don't know. I was probably 18, maybe 17, 18 years old in high school. Go to Gotzi. It's when Gotzi had huge numbers showing up, and forest war is always going on, and the wetlands would bring out their castle all the way to Gotzi. Oh, wow. And it was a blast of an event. And so we're there, and somebody brought a ballista, and we're shooting this ballista through all these battle games, and we're loading it up, and we're shooting these ballista bolts, and we have the castle there. I've been shooting it for a while. If I'm just bored, I'm like, nothing's happening. There's these stupid monks that's sitting on top of the castle, blocking the ballistas with their hands. I'm I'm not going to say I was purposely trying to shoot any of them in the face, but they were blocking. And so I finally leave and go to the front of the castle to try to get through the door. And the next thing I hear is just this loud, just thud up against the wood right above my head. And all of a sudden you hear in JW's voice and Aramithris's voice, hold. Everybody just hold. And like he has this Reeve ball cap on that's bright yellow. And he looks down and there's this monk ducking down and his hands pointing down. And he's just like, look. And right there on the wall of the wood that the monk is hiding behind is a ballista bolt physically stuck into the wood. Like it had driven itself into the wood. And JW grabs it. And you hear thunk and pulls it out. And he goes, no more ballista. Drops the bolt. Lay on. And everybody's like, ah! And I'm dead serious. Like 15 minutes before all that happened, I had accidentally shot one of my best friends straight in the back of the head with the ballista. And I was just like, oh my God, what just happened? And JW's just like, carry on, young children, keep playing. This is nuts, man. Like there's a hole like sitting there in the wood and splinters and everything. And I'm like, I don't think he realizes anybody could have literally died, or he just doesn't care. And so I'm all freaking out, like, what's going on? And he's just like, thunk, keep playing. It's fine. No big deal. So we've all heard the arrow stuck in the tree story. But this is legitimate. No kidding. There I was. The ballista bolt got stuck in Wetlands Castle.
Was this before? I was trying to remember his name while you were telling the story.
Osnog?
Yeah, was it before Osnog redesigned, like really changed the game with ballistas when he started using the golf club or golf tubes?
No. So actually, this was about the time Osnog was doing this as well, and he was using the golf tubes that as you put in the golf bags and everything, and so. I think he had his out there at the same time, and then and then there was another one, and there was two ballistas being fired at the same time. And so Osnog's was fine, and then the other one was not. But both of them were capable of shooting each other's ballista bolts. And so I have no idea who I don't know whose ballista shot which one.
Right.
But it was the exact same time that Osnog was there with his serpent belt that glowed in the dark.
Yeah.
And everything. So
yeah, if we don't ever talk about Osnog on the channel, but if you go to the AmpWiki and look him up, you want to talk about one of the founders of social media in Amtgard. His old school chess cams that he would do of battle games were the very first of their kind. They were.
It's where I got the spoon on the crossbow thing from.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember those, man. I would sit as a kid and just watch, and I was full of myself too. I was like, okay, I remember I was fighting him, and I remember he came around, and I bet you I can see if I can see myself in his video, and I would watch it and just try to
awesome.
like, oh, there I am for like 0.5 seconds. That's awesome. So.
That guy was an amazing shot with that crossbow.
Oh,
yeah, he was.
One spring war, somebody had like a big shield wall. There was like 20 of them. And in like less than a minute, he shot 13 of them, starting on the left, in the right kneecap. Because they all had their shield wall up. And it's like kneecap. I was like, didn't miss a single one. He was amazing.
I don't even know if they're still up. But look up Amtgard Osnog in YouTube or something like that, and see if you can find some of those old videos. Guys, if you find any, post the links down in the comments.
Doing that right now.
Yeah, there you go. Right. And
just have some fun.
Yeah. And Gavin, the question now comes to you: craziest, most fun Amtgard story that you have in tow.
One of the things that's missing from Amtgard these days that we had in the 90s was a little bit of good old hazing. In the 90s, if the fighting company was worth getting into, it was worth getting hazed to get into. That's just the way it was, And, especially in Texas Amtgard, it was really rough and rowdy back in the day. And the company I'm in now, the Rogers Raiders, famous for food and also famous for eating. And you better be prepared to eat to get into that company. Oh. People walking around with sweaty 30-pound blocks of cheese. You had a sponsor that you had 146-ounce jug of the cheapest pudding ever made, and you had to finish the whole thing. eat 17 blocks of cream cheese. Disgusting things, right?
I'm lactose intolerant, and that would be a suicide attempt.
Yeah. So there used to be a fake house called House Beer that some old raiders would let you try to get into or try to get initiated into. So they would take Natty Light, set it in a hot Texas garage to age for a year. Before, this would usually happen at Spring War. And then it would bring this very well-aged Natty Light in the Texas sun for a year, about 17 cases of it, put it on the back, gather up all the young kids who didn't know what was going on, and tell them they were going to get into House Beer if they could chug a case of this Natty Light.
Oh, jeez.
So we would gather them, and this such a thing did not exist. This was just pure entertainment for us, you know. But they thought they were going to get some kind of award or belt favor, but there wasn't such thing. And so it was one particularly rowdy one. We had like 18 kids just going for it. They were chugging this. And kind of one of those layered fountains, you know, sometimes you see where water flows from one level to the other. One kid puked and fell on the ground, and someone bent over to puke on him, which caused the third person to puke on that person's head. And so it was like this little river running downhill of puke over 3 bodies.
That is so disgusting.
Oh, man.
And they all got up and kept drinking. So
I mean, you know, at least they
earned
the job.
their entry into the non-official House Beer. But these days, we would all be arrested or who knows what. And certainly I could not even drink 2 sun-aged Natty Lights.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch the one, honestly.
Yeah, right.
And this is the point where we'll go back to one of Flo's oldies but goodies. The stories of old Amtgard are fun to listen to, but you will be banned if you do this.
Listen, if you want to see
You realize,
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Cabbage. I was going to say, you realize, like, all of our old Amtgard stories are basically like the opening credits of Jackass.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
Do not try this.
They are.
100%.
Listen, if you're that interested in seeing the puke stair step, you can go to any Golden Corral on any day of the week and see the exact same thing.
I think our Golden Corral closed too.
Thank goodness.
Oh, man.
All right, well, Gavin, Smiley, thank you so much for your time. It's awesome to see how, you know, AI works and see that from your point of view, so thank you so much. Like I said, this episode will release this Friday, so if you have any show notes you want to go in, I'll get with you on Facebook and we can get that all sorted out. Anything else before we wrap up?
I have something.
Flo's got something.
I want to give an extra special thank you to all of our Patreons and anyone who supports the show. If you'd like to support the show in any way, all of the links will be down in there. One of the best ways that you can support the show costs absolutely nothing at all. That is just to like, share, and subscribe to the video. It lets us do more stuff because we have to have like, shares, and subscribes to do stuff on YouTube.
All right. I'm going to hit this outro. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or Spotify to get notified about new episodes. And make sure to follow us on Facebook for announcements and more.